campaigns are 100% ready for having a specialized firm in fundraising. We've seen this take place with firms making just TV ads, even some for just knocking on doors.
I'm Eric Wilson, Managing Partner of Startup Caucus, the home of campaign tech innovation on the right. Welcome to the Business of Politics show. On this podcast, you're joining in on a conversation with entrepreneurs, operatives, and experts who make professional politics happen. Today, we're talking with Mika, CEO of Politicoin, a new digital fundraising firm. Ken was previously director of email marketing at the RNC during the 2020 cycle, and he's worked on a number of campaigns with a focus on fundraising. In our conversation today, we look forward to what's next for the fundraising landscape in 2024. Ken, are campaigns ready for specialized firms in digital? We obviously are familiar with some of the bigger firms that are full service, but Politicoin is seeking to be a very narrowly focused firm with an emphasis on fundraising.
Yeah, I think the campaigns are 100% ready for having a specialized firm in fundraising. We've seen this take place with firms making just TV ads, even some for just knocking on doors. This is no different than any of those. And this is something campaigns 100% need. And, spending a large amount through an umbrella digital firm is tough for some campaigns when we're right down to the point and our prices reflect that we're here just to help with fundraising.
Yeah, I think the timing is right. I think there have been some other efforts that were probably too early. But one of the things that I'm seeing here is that digital is really starting to mature. So when we talk about digital campaigning, that means different things to different people. But for the campaign managers, for the consultants, they start to see that there are different pieces of it. And so if your digital firm is only focused on advertising, that means that they're leaving other aspects like organic social media, fundraising. They're leaving those unattended, and they do require special skill sets. And just thinking of it from a management perspective, you need to have very clear goals and expectations for your vendors. To your point, door knocking firms, very clear objective there. We have finance consultants who focus just on fundraising. We know that most donors prefer to give online. So it makes a lot of sense that we would have specialists in digital. How are people reacting to your announcement?
The response has been great, which is appreciated by all. We have proven success, so that's helpful. And we're able now to show that and take that to those people who have reached out.
So why do you think and I want to get your real thoughts on this, why online fundraising face such strong headwinds in 2022?
Yeah, so this has been unfortunate to see in the news, but I think there are a couple pieces that play into it. It's very tough to compare 2022 fundraising to 2020 fundraising, right? Just as you would do with the number of votes that come in. This is an off-year cycle, or not off-year, but an off-presidential year. So it's very tough to say, look at all this money that wasn't raised. But at the same time, after that, you see a lot of people popping up saying they can do this fundraising at least, and they don't have the skills or the experience to do so and don't understand what actually is involved in doing it.
Well, but we did see the gap continue between Republicans and Democrats. So I guess let me refine my question to say, why do you think Republicans faced headwinds in 2022?
That's a great question. And I still don't think it was that bad for them. Yes, there's a gap, right? But there's the gap between the number of Democrat voters and Republicans as well. We are outnumbered, but when you look at how quickly Win Red picked up steam to catch up to Act Blue, the gap is a lot smaller there. And as you said earlier, we're maturing and we're getting to that point. So we're still finding our feet in fundraising. And I don't think it was terrible, like everyone's making it out to be, but we're getting there. Things are still settling and getting figured out.
Yeah, we did some survey work with people working in this field, and we got a few responses. And I'm curious to, and I think the real answer is like all of these contributed. So obviously there was some economic uncertainty that donors were facing, but I think more importantly, you had a lot of changes happening to our fundraising playbook. Namely, Facebook ads are just not effective anymore for online fundraising list building. So it's not just political, but it's commercial as well, with the iOS updates that really just cause problems for Facebook. And then you add into that, the over abundance of campaigns now asking for money, because we have been pushing Win Red and building successful online fundraising programs. And then you add in the issues with email deliverability. So I think it did create this kind of perfect storm for campaigns that they had to confront. Obviously, lots more work to be done, but it was a challenging environment.
Yeah, and with that challenge, we did see a lot of success through some campaigns.
So what are some of your bright spots from 2022?
For my bright spots, at least, it was being able to raise money in a lot of districts that were Biden plus. One campaign that I worked on was in a Biden +9. We did over $200,000 in small dollar donations, which in district I thought was incredible.
Wow.
That these people were coming across the aisle and to make a donation to see the change they wanted to. Another huge bright spot that I saw was how much other campaigns were willing to help out. And even with the committees as well, through back-end upsells, we were able to grow lists in places that were really difficult. And as you mentioned, with Facebook kind of shutting down that lead gen and not being as successful as it's been in the past, that was extremely helpful for some of these candidates who, one, didn't really have the resources to spend on list building, and two, were in areas where it would just be extremely ineffective when you're in a rural county in the middle of nowhere and you need to get more donors in.
Yeah. So do you think 2024 is going to be different? Are Republicans finally ready to tackle this challenge, specifically around I know you said it's not all bad news, but we did face a gap when it came to hard dollars, right? And our candidates were not able to compete in the hard dollar space. Do you think Republicans are ready to tackle this? I think we're already starting to see some signs of hope from the RNC with their debate requirements, but I'm curious to see if you have eyes on any other conditions.
I definitely think it will be interesting. I hope there is some change, but after this past cycle, I think a lot of effect will take place.
Mm-hmm.
What that will be, I don't know, but even recently reaching out to firms and trying to work with them or doing certain list building or rev shares, new requirements have come up for online fundraising. And we saw even with Google's pilot program now that's taken away. What are these?
So that just for our listeners to understand, that's Google had essentially a spam filter bypass. It was a one-time thing for political candidates. They offered it as a pilot late in the game in 2022. Not many people took advantage of that, and they've decided that they aren't going to continue this cycle.
And going back to your point on the hard dollars, which I think is a great indicator for these debate requirements, that'll definitely be really interesting to see how that plays out online, because one way we look at this at our firm is the number of donors you have is the number of supporters.
Right.
So you can bring in a ton of money, but if it's only from one person, it's great to have that money, but how far is that going to go in support? So
right.
It'll definitely be an interesting year to see what is said and what's come up, and especially with President Trump, who has such an advantage over some of these people. We'll see what happens.
You're listening to the Business of Politics show. I'm speaking with Mika, CEO of Politicoin, about the outlook for digital fundraising after 2022. Ken, one thing we've learned from post-election polling is that digital fundraising solicitations are reaching far too broad an audience. They're going to people who are even donating to the opposite party. So Democrats are reaching Republican donors and vice versa. What are some steps that campaigns could take to better qualify potential donors so they're not reaching far beyond where they ought to.
I don't think that's a bad thing that they're reaching a little further. However, I think it needs to be more clear why they're reaching across.
Elaborate on that.
This past cycle, we saw a lot of people coming across the aisle because of one major issue. Whether in New York, we saw it be crime, where a lot of people were getting fed up with what was going on, and that was leading them to donate. The problem that I think you mentioned is that the solicitations are too broad. So when you're sending out an end of month email asking for donations to those people, they're not going to donate, and they're probably going to mark you as spam because they don't want to receive that, or they're going to log at it or stop receiving your text messages, even go on social media and unfollow you because they don't want to see that content. But when you're segmenting and really giving them what they're asking for is where you're going to see the return. And I think that's how we can start to qualify these donors, is seeing where they're coming in from, what ad they might have clicked to get to you, what keyword they've sent in or replied to.
Got it. So rather than just sort of a one size fits all program where, everyone on your email list or text list gets the same fundraising message, you want to be personalizing that, segmenting it, and giving them more of what they want to hear.
100%. If you're coming in only from merchandise and we're not seeing you convert on any other ask or anywhere else, well, I'm only going to start sending you just merchandise and stop wasting any dollars on anything else.
And that saves the supporter the potential burnout, the unsubscribe, that sort of thing. When it creates just a little bit more work on the campaign, which I think is one of the challenges here, is instead of hitting send on one list, you've got to segment it up, but your results actually end up being better, hopefully.
Yes, you nailed it right on the head.
So what's another thing that campaigns can be doing to communicate their impact to donors and prospective donors? Because that's something that we've heard. We heard it a lot in our focus groups and post-election polling, where people said, I want to know why I'm giving money. Don't just tell me that there's a match. Don't tell me there's a deadline. But what are you doing with my funds? How do campaigns answer that question?
I think it's pretty simple, with a clear message of just saying what the money's going to, right? When you see the asks for radio ad funds or TV ad funds, those are always great to see because most likely or hopefully the money's going to that. One test that we ran this past cycle was in our upsell flows, which after you make the donation is getting another couple asks for people to give, was we were letting them know, if you give another $5, this is going to go towards buying pizza for volunteers, or this is going to go help knock doors. $20 equals 3 doors knocked. And we saw really great success with that because of what you mentioned, that it's being very clear of what this money is going towards, so the donor knows their dollar's not being wasted on something.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that is just nonprofit donor management 101 that we kind of got away from in politics, got so focused on the tactical, strategic side of things that we lost sight of that. And I think it is also really important to let donors know what it is that you're doing, because I think, this is an exercise I've gone through with several audiences over the last couple of weeks, which is take your average fundraising email, hide the disclaimer, hide the logo, any other identifying stuff. And, that could be sent really from any campaign on our side of the aisle. There's no distinction there. There's no brand building. So I think communicating that is going to be really important for campaigns going forward. Donors respond to those sorts of, specific appeals like that, or here's the TV ad you helped fund.
I think so. We see it in the results, right? If you're not looking at what's working, you're probably not going to run it. But we saw success with it, and we continued to move forward with those that worked. And
so for our listeners today who want to improve their online fundraising campaign performance, what is one thing that they should go out and do right now?
Call me. But no, really, definitely work on segmentation. Make sure you know where your people are coming from. That'd be my biggest thing. Get your data in order. And two, take a look at what's working. Follow through. It's not just sending it out and seeing the money come in. It's seeing how much is coming in, what's your average, and a little bit more too. What was the ask? Or even further, where in wherever part of the world you are is that money coming from?
What are some tools or I don't know, processes that people can do to better understand that and manage their segmentation, or even build segments?
Tough one to go through. It's very timely. There's not something that can very much help you, but if you have a basic CRM, making sure you have as much information on that person as possible and taking a look at how you want to market to that person, whether it's based on town, area of the state that you're a part of, or what topic that you came in on and that your candidate is gung-ho about. Seeing if your candidate's super pro police, making sure you're aware of what they might have given to is correlating back to that and taking the time just to go through and make sure everything's in order.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Just the power of a strong CRM, keeping your data organized and talking to each other is the key. What's an application that would help you be more effective on behalf of your clients? It's sort of something we always ask as we've got startup entrepreneurs listening in, and we want to give them good ideas. So, what's the missing tool in your toolbox?
That's really tough. Because I still feel like we're in the communication between teams is, I think, one of the tougher things that needs to be figured out. And thankfully now with group messaging, that's starting to get there, although it's staying relic in group emails of what we want to talk about and how we go about it. But if there was a political Slack type channel, that would be great, even though kind of Slack is the answer, but not all campaigns have that. But just a better type of communication tool between the candidate and their teams, or the GC and their teams, is definitely something that would be more effective to help.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. And we continue to see the benefits of having strong communication within teams. And people have heard me say this before, but we're not going to have a digital department for long, just like we don't have a phones department. Digital is just going to be in everything that we do, and communication is the key to that. Well, I want to thank Ken for a great conversation. You can learn more about Politicoin in the link in our show notes. If this episode made you a bit smarter or gave you something to think about, all we ask is that you share it with a friend or colleague and you look smarter in the process. Remember to subscribe to the Business of Politics show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. You can also sign up for email reminders on our website at businessofpoliticspodcast.com. See all of our past episodes and leave us your thoughts. With that, I'll say thanks for listening. See you next time.